Tyrone Wheatley was one of the top multi-sport athletes in Michigan high school history during his days at Dearborn Heights Robichaud High School.
Wheatley to the 5, touchdown!
As one of the state's top running backs, he led Robichaud to a state title in 1990. He averaged a double-double in basketball, but it was on the track where Wheatley really excelled. In perhaps the most dominant track and field career of anyone in state history, Wheatley won 9 MHSAA individual championships in 3 years. According to legendary Detroit sports writer Mick McCabe, Wheatley is the greatest high school athlete in the past 50 years.
Born and raised in Inkster, 268 47 Florence. And now reason why that number, that address is so important, and I'll explain it to you here in a minute, because faith and destiny, those two things are really, really real. If you don't believe in it, trust me, those numbers, 26847. So that was my grandmother's address where my mother and my aunties and uncles were raised. My father was shot and murdered when I was 2 years old, and was raised by my grandmother. My mom fell into some drug addiction and some alcohol issues, but still, was around. My uncle, my eldest two uncles, Cicero Mungo and Leonard Mungo, I was a mischievous child. I wasn't a bad guy, right? I was just mischievous, always into stuff. Climbing onto houses, jumping off houses, climbing trees, you name it, I did it, right? So just to kind of, as they call it, put that energy to work, they signed me up for the Inkster Raiders. The Inkster Raiders was our local Pop Warner team. Just growing up in Inkster really was a competitive place. I mean, I still say this today, we have some of the best athletes you never heard of. And with that being said, we would have our street Olympics, our street football wars, our basketball, playing in the days you couldn't go get to a park because a lot of the older guys would hold the park courts down and you couldn't get a game, you couldn't play. So we would just kick the bottom of a milk crate out or take the spokes out of a rim, bang it onto a pole, and you played that way. And so that's really where the basis of my competitiveness and everything started was, just playing neighborhood basketball, football, and running track. And that's really where it began. But when we went to the championship down in the Silverdome, to see Inkster was finally at one point, just all collectively together to represent Robichaud. It wasn't Inkster High, the Vikings, maroon and white. It wasn't Robichaud, Bulldogs, red, black, and white. It was the city of Inkster. And so to see that, man, we were galvanized. It was the most impressive thing for me to see, and it was truly special. I grew up a Michigan State fan, and Gary Moeller did an incredible job, as with Lloyd Carr and Jim Herman were my main recruiters in getting me to Michigan. Playing Boston College, and Derek Alexander unfortunately goes down with a knee injury, and they send a young Tyrone Wheatley back to catch the punt. And that ball, it seemed like the ball was up there forever. And I fair caught the ball with about 30 yards in front of me to run. So they sent me out there again, and I said, I'm gonna catch this one. I almost got decapitated. And they looked at me and said, that was it. Desmond Howard, go out there and catch the punts. And from that point on, the rest is history with the pose with Desmond. I'm not saying, but if I did my job, what I was supposed to do, Desmond still would have won the Heisman, but without the punt return, because I'd have been returning the punts. So the thing that I'm most proud of up to this point, because like I said, I don't think my work is done yet, being an example. Being an example of circumstances that you can overcome. That your circumstances do not dictate or predict where you'll end up. That you have the pencil to your story. You can erase it as many times as you want to. You can cross out whatever you want. You can go back and correct it, right? You have the pencil to the chapters of your book. And yes, people call me a quote unquote great athlete, and I'll say this, and people can say whatever they want to say. I'm not the greatest athlete that came out of Michigan. I'm not the greatest athlete to ever come out of Inkster. I'm just the one with the most exposure. And I do this for all those that didn't have it. I never ever once chose a football number. Never once have I chose a football number. So I played varsity football as a true freshman. Eric Thomas is the quarterback. So I was the backup quarterback. Yawk says, quarterback's up first. Eric Thomas says, give me number 1. Yawk looks at me and throws me number 2. Go to Michigan. Equipment guy calls me and says, hey, Walter Smith has number 2. You're gonna take number 6. I take 6. Go to the Giants. Giants says, you can't wear a single digit number. Rodney Hampton has 28. How would you like to have 27? How would you like to have 28? Take 28. I go to Oakland. I get there late in camp. The equipment guy says, we have no numbers. Wait until the cuts come. We have 47. Is that cool? I said, is that the only number you have? He said, that's all we have. I said, it's cool, I'll take it. He said, 47? I walk out to practice. John Gruden looks at me and says, that's the ugliest number I ever seen in my life, 47? I said, you hate it? He said, yes. I said, well, I'll take it, I'll keep it. The address of where I grew up, 268 47 Florence. I'm looking at the address and I started crying. And my daughter was like, what's going on? And I looked at the address and I said, the address. And it didn't hit me until I went back and I showed the kids where I grew up, the address. I love sports. I love sports. There's nothing in the world like it. There's no culture like it. There's no unity like it. You can't find what you find in a locker room. You can't find what you find on the field. You can't find that anywhere other than your home, right? Other than your home. So for me, I just want to impact other young Tyrone Wheatleys and other young kids. So I've always wanted to coach. So, you know, you induct 4 to 5 athletes a year, and once again, just coming back to the state of Michigan alone, of all the great athletes that has come through here, you know, I find myself being inducted, not just into Michigan, we're talking about the National High School Hall of Fame. We're talking about, you know, the great state of Florida, California, Texas, I mean, New York in the basketball, right? I mean, we're talking Iowa, Nebraska in the wrestling, and you're talking the nation, and then I'm being inducted into this. And have not found words to quite express how I feel about it, but I would just say this, man, pinch me, pinch me.
A football standout at Robichaud High School in Dearborn, Michigan, who also won 9 individual state titles in track and field before his success at the University of Michigan and in the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tyrone Wheatley. Presenting the Hall of Fame medallion to Tyrone Wheatley is Mark Ewell, Executive Director of the Michigan High School Athletic Association. Ladies and